Hello, everyone. It's Henry DeVries. Welcome to the Marketing with a Book podcast. I'm the CEO of Indie Books International, and we work with consultants who want to attract high-paying clients by marketing with a book and a speech. And our motto is the book is the starting line, not the finish line. And it's a marathon. And we've got a marathon runner to talk to us today, at least in the field of speaking and coaching and writing. So before we go to our special guest, we like to do our author roll call. So you get to unmute yourself and you can give us a couple of minutes today about who you are and your book. And let's start off somebody who's celebrating something special. How about start with Kim Nagel?
Can I get a big whoop, whoop? Yeah, this damn thing is done, okay? Just gonna say it like I mean it. Today is official launch day of the Damn Plan, How to Find Freedom, Love, and Money in Your Business. And it feels awesome. I know this is just the beginning of a journey. And this journey has been quite a wild ride. It's 30 years of my entrepreneurial experience, tucked into a book with stories and humor and a few tears, but also practical how to find freedom, love, and money in your business by following the damn plan, making good, determined decisions by the numbers, acting consistently, minding your business, and lastly, no excuses. So I'm glad to be here tonight and glad to have your whoop whoop just help me celebrate.
Thank you, Kim. Let's go with David and Mary and then Mark.
Hi, thanks, Henry. Hi, I'm David Goldman, and I wrote a book called The Road to Happiness, How to Get What You Really Want. And thanks to Henry and his team. It's a pleasure to work with you.
Thanks. Mary and Mark?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Schmidt, and I wrote the book, Make or Break Conversations. How smart financial professionals land and keep clients for a lifetime. You know that moment in a conversation where you may think like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. Or worse yet, you say to yourself, oh my God, why did I say that? That's what's inside the book. It's the science behind leading conversations that build engagement and trust.
Thanks for being with us, Mary. Mark and then Chris Hodges.
Thank you, Henry. My name is Mark LeBlanc in Minneapolis, and my first book came out 20 years ago and was titled Growing Your Business. It's become a little bit of an underground bestseller. But when I think about the two specific problems it addresses for independent and practice professionals is number one, a lack of focus, and number two, a lack of consistent earning out of your business in terms of owner's compensation. I find that people either take too much out of their business too soon or too little for too long. And I'm excited to share that later this year, we will launch the 20th anniversary edition of Growing Your Business.
Thanks. How about Chris Hodges and then Diane Ployce?
I missed the first question, but this is Chris
I was
Hodges.
just introducing you and telling us about your upcoming book, and you have a really awesome title, we think. So I want to hear it.
Say this, but Henry helped me 2 days ago come up with what I think is quite possibly a great title. The new title to my book is Your Noble Robot. And the point of that is to say how leaders are using intelligent technologies to profit and retain their top talent. It's all about taking the scare the hell out of your employees out of automation and turning it into a profitable way to make people more human. And I'm really excited about the title. I'd love to hear any input. Your Noble Robot. If any of you like it, you can type in the chat. But damn it, Henry was right. And he's the one who suggested it. So it is what it is.
Well, I'll give you some feedback because we have production meeting on Tuesdays before this. And at the production meeting, I said, Chris Hodges has a new title for the book. I said, what is it? And I said, Your Noble Robot. And everyone gasped. So that's always been like, if everybody gasps when you give your title, you got a winner. I was at a conference once, well, Mark and I put it on, and somebody said, well, I need a title for this book. And Mark said, well, I've got the title for your book. And he gave the title out, and everybody gasped. And the author said, yeah, something like that. I said, no, not something like that. That one. When everybody gasps, you know you've got something.
Super.
Okay, well, let's go to Chris Hodges. We just had Chris Hodges. Let's go to Joe Palo and then Diane Ployce.
Hang on. There we go.
Hey, Joe.
Joe Palo here. I'm also in Minneapolis with Mark. Just starting the process of working with Henry and Mark and enjoying the process. The title of my book is How to Sell Nothing. Basically, it's a logical approach to make the emotional sale.
Great. Thanks for being with us, Joe. You've got some good stories in that book. Okay. Diane Ployce.
Hello, my name is Diane Ployce. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. The working title of my book is Questions to Ask Before You Buy a Franchise.
Thanks. And also a native of Wisconsin and a big fan of cows. So good to see you. Okay. Let me see if I can. Oh, I see Teresa Ashby. Teresa, why don't you say hello?
Would love to. I'm Teresa Ashby, and I am in Long Beach, California. And my title of my book is Better Implementation Now.
Nice. Okay. Well, I wanted to turn it over to our chairman. Thank you, everyone. Mark LeBlanc for a tip for us today. And as Mark mentioned, he has an undergrad bestseller. He's averaged a case sale a week for 12 years on his book, Growing Your Business. I think 80,000 copies in print last time I checked. So Mark, what do you have to share today?
Thank you, Henry. And the phrase is good news, hard news. We always hear the phrase good news, bad news, but I think there are times when we can reframe bad news as just simply hard news. Recently had a client who used that phrase to increase her fees, and she put an extra, I think it was about an extra $9,000 to her revenues in a 30-day period. We discussed raising her fees, and she said, well, how do I communicate that? And I said, well, next time you have a meaningful conversation with someone and it comes to the subject of your fee, you can say something like, well, I've got good news and I've got hard news. The good news is that the response to my work has been overwhelmingly positive. The hard news is that we've had a bit of a fee adjustment here recently, and she used that setup in her agreement phase conversation, and over the course of a 30-day period added $9,000 to her revenues. So sometimes we talk about the 20% bump in terms of raising your fees. I think people are too easily give deals out there and they're leaving money on the table. I refer to it as the Grand Canyon gap, undercharging and over delivering. So if you find yourself in that Grand Canyon gap, you might want to experiment and test drive the phrase, I've got good news and I've got hard news for you today. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, Mark. Well, let's go to our special guest. Very excited to have Alan Cohen with us today. When we started Indie Book 7 years ago, I thought, well, the problem with my business model is I'm going to meet some great people and we're going to do a book together, and then they're going to disappear out of the life. You know, that we won't see them again. I was wrong, happily wrong. So I helped Alan with his first book, Those Difficult Talks for PR Pros. At the time, he was a leading expert in helping marketing communications agencies, especially with their organizational issues and having those difficult conversations. A lot of avoidance there, conflict avoidance, and he helped those people. And then became a big advocate for indie books and has sent many people our way. And then we got to help him with his book, The Connection Challenge. And that's about how executives create power and possibility in what he calls the age of distraction. So The Connection Challenge, and he's out there. And we've just seen Alan blossom. I mean, he's been so great. Recently did a TED Talk. Maybe he'll talk a little bit about that. He's a professional speaker. He's an executive coach. He's a business coach. He's navigated many aspects. I love the fact that he used to be involved with the Tonys because we're such Broadway fans here. Tony. So he's been involved with that. And we were commiserating over the state of Broadway right now, but it's going to come back. We're getting our vaccines. We're getting our masks. We're going back. Broadway's coming back, baby. And without much further ado, because your introduction is not supposed to be longer than the speech the person's about to give, let me turn it over to Alan Cohen. Let's welcome him with our jazz hand salute. Take it away, Alan.
Well, so thank you for that lovely introduction. And I want to express so much gratitude to you, Henry, and also to Mark. I'm so happy to see Mark. You two were really pivotal at pivotal moments in my career as a speaker, as an aspiring author, as aspiring thought leader. And Henry, I remember sitting with you at a public relations conference and just being so annoyed that there was a woman on stage talking about things that I could be talking about. And I remember you turned to me and said, "Well, I think it was you. I may be mixing this story up, but that she has a book and you don't." And so I attended your workshop and that weekend and started my first book. And so grateful to you for that. And Mark, you taught me how to become a professional speaker, and so it was very early conversations that really inspired me. And so grateful to both of you, and always happy to be a part of your community. So I'm woefully unprepared in terms of a speaking topic. I guess I thought you were going to ask questions and I would answer, but I can go in any direction.
I can ask questions. Yeah, if you want to do the Q&A thing.
That's my favorite format. So if you would be so kind.
Okay. Well, I'm going to set it up to reply to something you said because it's a powerful message for us all. So how I met Alan, I thought it was hard news from Mark. I thought it was hard news that day because I was invited to fly to Asheville, North Carolina. And it was a public relations conference for leaders of public relations firms. And I thought, what a target-rich environment for people who would want to hire me to do a book. And the hard news was they said, Henry, you're our last speaker of the day. And things had to be adjusted. So I need you to know that the golf tournament starts during your speech. I said, okay. And a room with 50 people empties to 7 people. And I go on. I thought, I've flown across country on my own dime to give this speech to 7 people. But Mark always told me, wherever 2 or more are gathered, it didn't matter because one of those 7 people was you, Alan. You were my reward for doing that. And when I do the genealogy of my revenues, it's just not the books that you've done, but you've been such an advocate and brought so many people. And that speech is what did it. Yeah. So I want to know, how did you get the TEDx talk?
So, and it's cool that you bring that up because I've actually started coaching TEDx aspiring speakers. So I've taken amassed all of the learning and training that I did to get the speech to now help other people do it. And so persistence and resilience, I guess, are my middle names. it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't as easy as I hear it is for some people. I applied 15 times, and 15 is a charm. And I was ready to pretty much toss in the towel a whole bunch of times along the way. But what I had to do was really just trust my gut, trust my instincts. And that, for those of you who don't know my story already, I was the publicity director for the Harry Potter book series launch about 20 years ago. And to me, that was one of the most interesting things about my life experience that would set me apart from all these other coaches who talk about purpose and talk about team building and all that. And Mike, the consultant I was working with, said, the Harry Potter thing, it's like a little too commercial. It's a little much. It sounds like an advertisement. But to me, my intuition said there's going to be somebody on a TEDx panel that is a Harry Potter geek. And sure enough, I found that person who has become a very good friend of mine. And so 15 is a charm because it's the application that I wrote for myself. Didn't have anybody else writing it for me. And it's proof in the power of trusting your instincts. And I knew that the story was an important one. It's about how to navigate chaos through a shared sense of purpose. And we see that in our times right now, that we've been able to get through a pandemic. And a lot of it has to do with people coming together, communities coming together, and a shared purpose to help us navigate like a GPS. So my talk is called The Magical Power of Shared Purpose. And a lot of what I do as a coach is help individuals, leaders, teams align around purpose and connect with themselves and connect with others. So it was a beautiful experience and tough. It was, what is it Mark said? It was it was good news and tough news. Was that hard news? I get that right? Hard news, because the good news is you get it, and the hard news is you got to do it. And it's a rigor. It was rigorous for me. A lot of practice, a lot of time put in, and emotional experience, but a positive one.
It's like in journalism when we say, what happens when the dog catches the car? So what happens when you actually land the TEDx talk?
Yeah.
There's a lot more that happens after you land it. So
yeah, I've never worked so hard for anything. I can honestly say, for me, it's just the practice, the time that I put in, because I felt the stakes were so high, and for me, it really has been an incredible catalyst for a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of coaching assignments, a lot of training. And it wasn't the reason why I did it. It wasn't for the business outcome, but it's fantastic that it did. And today I hit actually 100,000 views, which is great. It's I love to see the number continue to grow, which means that people are responding to the message of shared purpose. So yay.
Yay.
Hey, me.
So if persistence is one of your middle names, I think pivot is also one of your middle names, because you're excellent at pivoting as things change.
Yeah.
So you pivoted to the connection challenge. Could you tell us how you made that pivot?
Yeah. So it's my spouse in the background is greeting the dog walker. Forgot that I'm doing a podcast interview. So that is life. So I have always been a real extrovert, and always found connection come very easily for me. But over the past few years, I've noticed that it's become harder. And a lot of that has to do with people's attention span and the need for immediacy so I wanted to explore what brings us into connection and what takes us out of connection, and provide tips and tools for executives and leaders to learn how to connect more authentically, and provide some useful resources. And I think it's always been part of my DNA as a connector, networker, as a recruiter, all the things that I've done in my life now as a speaker. But I really wanted to help people understand this thing that we're hardwired from birth to do, and yet it can become very, very difficult and very confronting. So to break it down. And then after I wrote the book, I saw like 20 other books on connection. So there you go. But I feel like I was one of the first, which is kind of nice.
You were there.
Another
You were there. Yeah. So I'd like to hear what you do on a monthly basis, because I think Prolific was the other middle name. Was that right?
All those P's.
Oh, okay. But you're prolific. You're very good at keeping the name out there. As Patricia Fripp says, it's not their job to remember us. It's our job to remind them that we exist. So how do you remind the people who have the potential to hire you that you exist on a monthly basis?
Sure. I've had a big network for most of my professional career, having worked in public relations in New York, and but then it's how do you stay in touch with people, and for me it's just about giving value and investing in relationships that has really helped brand me as a connector. So to continue to provide, to help, to do referrals, I'm really, it's the way that my mind works. Before you've even finished the sentence, I'm thinking of the 5 people who I need to introduce you to. And so that create that kind of sacred trust with people in my network, then they think of me as someone who knows people, people who know people, right? Or people who need
luckiest people in the world.
Luckiest
Yes,
people. Thank you, Barbara. And so that's I think that's how I think content helps me to stay relevant. And I share the journey. I share the struggle. I share not only the highlight reels, but the behind the scenes. And for some people, it's probably more than they need to know. And for others, they're interested in the ups and the downs and the sideways. And this year in particular has just been so many lessons learned around resilience, and I'm an emotional intelligence coach. So just how we ride the currents of emotions that have come up, and I share that pretty outwardly.
So the last 12 months, the COVID last 12 months, April 2020 to April 2021 versus the previous 12 months to that, did you do better, the same, or worse?
I would say probably 25% down over pre-COVID. And I was fine with that, because frankly, I needed more space for myself, and I just didn't want to. There was a grieving period, and there was this time I just used the time as a timeout. My husband is a chairman of an emergency room, so we were just so in the center of all of what was going on. I just felt like I needed to be present and not always be working. So I was fine with it. I used that time to explore some creative pursuits. I started painting and drawing again, and started creating some new offers. So more of the public speaking, the TedX training. That was what I did in some of the quieter times. And I was so inspired by my clients that I was working with, the small business clients, and who also really pivoted. One of my clients is he trains young people for their Broadway auditions, and there's been no Broadway, but he working with me just brought all of his business online, doing Zoomsicles, and he's had the best year ever. And so I'm inspired by my clients' resilience, and so just because it was COVID didn't mean that your business necessarily had to had to reduce. A lot of my clients saw real upticks in their business because they were able to pivot to stay relevant and to really understand what did people need during this time.
Well, your husband was one of the heroes, that's for sure. I mean, New York was hit so hard. We were so worried about you. And
Yeah.
But another one of our authors' husband was in, an emergency room doctor, and she just said that's what he signed up for. That's a long time ago. He signed up for this.
Yeah. Well, I in many of your backyards and around the world, we saw people cheering for the healthcare workers and first responders and the frontline workers and banging pots and pans and leaning out the window and that demonstration of empathy, which is really fueled him and his staff during those really difficult times.
It had to be exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, moving on. Okay, so you've opened up some creative outlets. You've done these things. What's your forecast on when we're speaking live again? When are we speaking live in front of audiences?
Yeah, so I've gotten invited to do some small group speaking in the fall, and I'm still I'm hesitating to commit at this point, but I think by late fall, winter, I think we're going to start seeing more opening up as more people are vaccinated, as more of these venues figure out their ventilation systems and all of that. But in New York, I have no idea. A lot of these stages, they're in old buildings. They're not able to ventilate as well as some of the bigger, more modern venues. But I'm hopeful. Or as my doctor spouse says, we just don't know. We just don't know. We're hopeful though. We are hopeful.
Yeah.
And in the TED world, in a lot of TEDs aren't even announcing their applications are open yet because they're still trying to figure out if they're going to have an audience or if it's going to all be virtual.
So I want to put people on the spot right now, the studio audience, and just do a quick round robin. We're not done with you, Alan, but I want to do a round robin on this subject. And passing is a fine answer, but if you're willing to share, when is your next booking where people are paying you to be in front of a live audience? And I'll start March of 2022. I've had my first paid booking that you'll be in front of a live audience. So going around, Mark, if I can put you on the spot, have you accepted a paid gig yet?
I've not accepted a paid gig on my calendar. The next in-person experience that I would have would be our Whatever It Takes conference in La Jolla in November of 2022.
I know you will be offered paid gigs between now and then, so that'll be a decision you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
So Diane, any paid gigs? Okay, Teresa?
Just in conversation, but I'm still kind of liking being remote, getting a lot of international kind of opportunity to speak to people. So I'm still in the balance, but I don't think I'll be getting anything until the first part of 2022 also.
Yeah. I accepted a big virtual conference in the fall today in October. But yeah, and that's an international gig, but yeah. David, anything paid gig yet that you're thinking about?
Thank you for asking, Henry. I just had a conversation today with a guy, and we discussed the possibility of something as soon as September, but we're not sure if it's going to be. We discussed whether it might be live or virtual, and I'm happy to do virtual. I'm actually happier to do virtual. But see that, Mark? Look what you've done.
Oh, Mark is crushing it on virtual. Mary, anything on the calendar yet?
Not for in person. I've got a couple things that are lined up, but they're virtual.
Yeah,
No in
virtual.
person.
Okay, Kim Nagel.
The soonest paid in person is going to be in October, and still signing and sealing the deal on that. But like so many of you, I've actually profited a great deal by being virtual and licensing a great deal of the training programs that I do. So I've kind of pivoted myself and gone to licensing.
Yeah. Licensing is a topic we need to cover here. I know Joe Palo, we've been talking about licensing. Mark, we've been talking about licensing, and several others. I think it would be good to explore that a little. Joe, do you have anything paid on the calendar coming up?
Not yet. Nope.
Yep. Okay, so for those listening at home on Spotify or iTunes, if I asked this group about paid gigs, let's say January of 2020, they would be, well, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this. They all had a lengthy list. It's been a pivot for a lot of us that we're doing fine. Some are doing great, but it's all been the shift to virtual. And we've had a lot of conversations with, is it all going back to the way it was? And I think we're all concluded no. Once we've seen what virtual could be like, I know in my own, I've been doing virtual events now for 15 months. We were starting going virtual before COVID hit, and it has just been so great because I haven't had to be on the road as much. I've reached people. Business has grown. Now I miss it. And some of our authors have told me until they can be live again, they're not even interested in speaking. They've got plenty of business on coaching and training, but until they can have that experience of the live audience, which we all know is great, that's a great thing to do. Alan, you're so great in front of a live audience. I know you miss it, but what is your game plan moving forward?
Yeah, so one of the pivots this year for me has been doing a lot more coaching and speaking on issues around diversity, inclusion, and equity as it relates to emotional intelligence. And so I've got a nice sized contract with the city of New York, and it's all online, and it's paid work, and I love it because I'm able to do it from here, or I'm able to do it from my other home in another location. And so I miss live events, absolutely. But I also remember, but for me, it's much more about getting the message out, and it's more about the audience receiving information. And if online is the preferred venue right now, then I'm happy to be there. I miss the high fives and the hugs and all of that. But for me, I'm about service, and it's about the audience. It's not about me. So I'll go wherever I need to go. If it's just on a chair in my living room, that's fine. And
let's talk publicity for authors. You are an expert on the subject of publicity. Certainly, we talked about. You kind of brushed past J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter intro kind of fast, like, oh yeah,
that's right.
Harry Potter.
Say that, hashtag no big deal, right?
Yeah.
And also when I was doing publicity, when I was in the thick of it as an entertainment publicist, and there were 3 channels. There was ABC, CBS, NBC, and maybe CNN back then. I don't remember. And there was the New York Times and USA Today, and that was kind of it, And then the main newspapers and all the big cities, and so in some ways it was a different ball game. When I did J.K. Rowling's first publicity tour, we thought AOL chat was like a big deal. I, there was virtually no social media at all. So in some ways it was harder because there were fewer options. But I think it's really difficult now to break through in publicity because there's so many people competing for attention, and so with that said, I think, and it's what you teach and it's what Mark teaches, it's really about thought leadership. It's about positioning yourself as an expert and just providing content and content and content and value and value and value. And that's how you break through. And that's what I would recommend to anyone. And social media and video, that's what gets you recognized, and it's still great to get on the Today Show or get on the local news, but it's really important to have an online media footprint as well. So when these producers are researching you or somebody is recommending you, they're going to go and see what kind of social media, what you're posting to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I've never done Snapchat. I won't. And so those are my tips. And do-it-yourself publicity is fine when you're starting out and making those contacts and connections.
What's your social media drug of choice? Which one do you choose to be on the most?
Oh God, my parents will tell you enough with the Facebook already. I kind of live on Facebook, and that is my favorite. I get business. I do a lot of coaching of coaches and speaker training for coaches. So, and they live on Facebook in my world. So I get a lot of business from Facebook, but I just like Facebook. I just enjoy it. And second to that is Instagram, just because it's so visual, and I like posting video and graphics and memes and all that kind of cool stuff.
Mark had a phone call this week with a number of his clients, many of them speakers and authors, and he was talking about that Facebook was his choice, and Facebook is for people over 50, because people under that, they don't want to be on it because their parents are on it. So we're of that generation that's on there. I find consultants, coaches, experts, thought leaders are on Facebook, and they want to share and converse on Facebook. I fill my events with LinkedIn. We're black belt ninjas when it comes to using LinkedIn to fill small scale seminars. That's what we're known for. But you don't. I don't feel like I build relationships on LinkedIn.
Right. For me, LinkedIn is like probably my most under leveraged social media community. A funny story about Facebook. So I was posting the other day about I picked up Spanish, studying Spanish this year in the COVID lockdown, and my Spanish teacher from elementary school messaged me, and she said, "Practice, practice, practice. Use it or lose it." She must be 90.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was awesome. 90.
I had my first editor who hired me when I was 15 years old. Reach out on Facebook about, way to go with your new book. And he was 89 at the time and had been following. Stalking would probably be a better word, but yeah.
And he said, and your use of the terminal comma is incorrect. That's probably
well, that was my my high school speech coach was up there talking about, "Oh, good job. Remember, it's harder to prepare a 5-minute talk than a 20-minute talk." Right. You taught me that 50 years ago. Okay, it still works.
I got it.
Yeah. So, Alan, I put a conference on at UC San Diego a few years back, and I had the VPs from Facebook come and speak. Elon Musk came, but I didn't get Zuckerberg. I got the VP. But they told me that the world has shifted. We are all our own broadcasting station now. And we don't need the 3 networks anymore. And everybody with a smartphone and Facebook or LinkedIn, now Instagram, they are their own media and broadcast it out there. So I don't think it replaces traditional public relations. I should say that since I write for Forbes.com, there's still a place for us. And, I just saw a recent column got 70,000 readers. I'm like, whoa, nobody's going to read 70,000. There's not going to be 70,000 hits on my LinkedIn post. That's for sure. So there is a place for media, and you need to get in there. Any tips for how to be newsworthy, how to take your book and make it palatable for journalists?
Sure. Well, I think the one thing that I see is that there are people putting a lot of content out there, but they're not necessarily clear on their message and how they want to represent themselves. So it's great to be a content factory, but make sure that you're clear and consistent in terms of the key messages that you want to get out about your business and your services. And I see some people do it really well, but I see some people just their content is just so random. And so it's just really one thing that I always worked on with my clients was really creating very, very clear messaging documents. And so that everything that you put out and every interview that you did, every conversation, you could tie it back to your core message. And it's all about relationships, and it always was, and it still is, even in an online world. Most of the people that we know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who is a reporter at MSNBC. So the more your content is relevant, and the more you are working to develop relationships in an authentic way, the more people are going to seek you out and think about you for stories and respond to your pitches. So that's it. I was just reminded, I want to share with everyone this as a gift, a copy of my book, The Connection Challenge. Henry, I don't know if this is something that you advise authors to do or not, but we're going to put in the chat right now the URL. You can download the entire book at no cost, and because I want to make that available to all of you, because it's my content and I want to give it away. I want to, and that's how you get known. And the book is a vehicle to get known. So that's it's there in the chat.
Our brand is generosity too. Let me share a publicity tip. You reminded it as people are looking at that. A publicity tip that I found in publicizing a book is, what is your book about? And is there a federal government statistic or report that they issue on a regular basis? Because as a journalist, say every month the jobs report comes out. Is unemployment up? Is unemployment down? Is unemployment the same? And as a reporter, you have to write a story to make that interesting. It's as bad as the poor editors at 17 magazine. I interviewed them and they said, every year we have to do the nail polish story. What's the hot new nail polish? How many years can you write the nail polish story and keep it fresh? Right. Well, it's the same with all these stories. In the book I wrote and co-wrote called Closing America's Job Gap. So it was about employment in America. So the tie-in to the labor statistics that came out every month was perfect. And we got the lead author of the book on Bloomberg News. And it was interesting because she was in Arizona the time when the report came out, and they said, no problem. And they sent her to a little studio with a green screen behind her. And then on the green screen, they flashed the mountains of the Phoenix Valley. Looked like she was outdoors in Phoenix talking. And then they did a split screen with President Obama, it was Obama at the time, giving a speech talking about employment. And I mean, that's the miracle of TV. And that was a huge hit. And TV, you can't understand how many millions of people are watching TV at any one moment on all those channels. It's just huge if you can get on, as you said, the Today Show or Bloomberg, or one of our authors is a regular correspondent for Fox. He's a former FBI national spokesperson. And when there's an active shooter or when there's a terrorist, wherever he's at, they get him in front of a green screen to comment on, well, what's the FBI thinking at this time?
Right.
So if you can find that out there and have a regular television commentary relationship, and it could be with MSNBC, it could be with CNN, it could be with Fox. They need people who are experts to fill the screen.
Absolutely.
Okay, if there's any other questions for Alan, we got a lot of thank yous, but if there's any question, put it in the chat box. And then Alan, is it okay to ask something that might be a little personal?
Oh, yes, I'm an open book.
Okay.
So please do.
So
Open.
we quote Alan weekly at Indie Books, and there is a phrase he taught us, and it's about in relationships, and you said it's all about relationships, but keeping your relationships right. And it's, is your side of the street clean? And we'll say on something, okay, is our side of the street clean? Yes. Okay. Or if it's no, well, we got to get it clean before we can expect other people to do it. Can you, I don't mean you to go too personal, but can you just expand on what that means?
Sure. And this is something that I think is really difficult, especially in all settings, but a lot of corporate work that I do where there's team dysfunction, and it's getting people to recognize, to take responsibility for their part of any kind of a breakdown. And so being a person of integrity is to acknowledge also when you've been out of integrity, and no one is perfect. But to see that to see what, even if it's just like, what's that 2% that I can take responsibility for in this breakdown, in this unmanageable conflict, in this argument, whatever it is. And I don't know if what you're referring to is kind of is maybe just my own journey with sobriety, but in very early on in recovery, we're taught that it's like resentments are really dangerous. You hold on to those resentments, and you make the other person wrong. You blame other people and take no responsibility for. That's the thing that will send you on a bender. That'll have you engaging in really all kinds of self-destructive behavior, and the other person may not even know that you are angry at them. So we can't control others. We can't get others to apologize or take responsibility, but we can always take responsibility and keep our side of the street clean, and try not to make the mess in the first place. But when we do, go back and look at how we can restore integrity and how we can just make things right. And easier said than done, but I think it's a valuable tool in business and in our personal lives. Keep your side of the street clean.
I think it's so great because we all need integrity. And as you said, we all slip. But a slip doesn't mean the game's over. It just means you need to take action to clean it up.
Yeah,
that was a mixed metaphor, but yours was better.
Yeah, and it just requires a level of rigorous honesty. It's like when you go to sleep at night. Did you use words that were harmful to another? Did you, did you act in alignment with your values? Did you act respectfully? Were you kind? That's my favorite word, kind. Where could you have been kinder? And I think right now everybody is under significant amounts of stress. Our systems have all been battered, and so to be forgiving of others and be forgiving of ourselves. We don't always show up in the best way that we can, but we know what to do. We know how to make things right most of the time.
Well, Alan, I want to thank you. And working with you on that first book about difficult talks, I made new decisions in my life, because if people did me wrong, basically I just cut them out of my life. There
Right.
was no conversation that they got a second chance if they had pushed me too far. You know, I was forgiving up to a point, and then was like, okay, I'll just not have you in my life. That was not the best course. So I think it's much better to do as you advised and have those difficult conversations with our clients, our vendors, the important people in our life, instead of walking away. So
Yeah,
thank you
I
for
think-
that. Thank you for your time today. I
Yeah.
think we've all learned something, and we appreciate you being with us and being part of the Indie Books family. You're certainly a great asset to the family. Thank you, Alan. And
Thank
thanks
you.
to all our authors for being here today. Really advise you to get Alan's book. And if you want to thank him, I'm sure a recommendation on LinkedIn, because you've all heard him speak now, wouldn't be so wrong. And if you even wanted to try to give a review on Amazon, that'd be great. However, we're going to have another topic on this. Amazon is changing the rules on reviews, and they've already changed them. Algorithms have changed. Some surprising things we're learning. I've written a new monograph on the subject, and we want to go deeper on that. But it's getting harder and harder to get reviews posted with your book. And there are reasons behind all that. And the more we know, the better we are. So thank you, Alan. Thanks to all our authors, and have a great week. And we'll see you again on the Marketing with a Book podcast. Thanks, everybody.